Hello, folks. Welcome to the Scumdogs Kennel. I'm your host, Chris Williams, and I have another great show planned for us. But while we wait for people to gather in the chat, let me go off and show off some artwork from my own upcoming graphic novel, Scumdogs, okay? But while we wait for... So let me go to share screen. And here we go. We're going to be talking about UFO waves again tonight. Talking about a bunch of UFO stories, but here's my artwork. Here's this page right here. This is a cover. This is one of the covers for my graphic novel Scumdogs. One of 3 different variant covers. This is the extreme 90s cover. This cover I did to go back to the comic books of the 90s. Well, to give you the feeling of the 90s. You can see most of my characters are engaged in a big, huge battle on it. It looks pretty good. Now, the Scumdogs themselves, well, it's a parody book. My book is a parody of 80s cartoons and stuff like that. You know, cartoons we all grew up with. My 2 main characters are, well, Death Mug and Buick Starpoon. Death Mug is the purple guy with the metal mask, and Buick Starpoon is the guy with the pink pompadour hair over there. Now, Death Mug has aspects of a bunch of different villains from 80s cartoons. If you watch G.I. Joe, you can see that he has a metal mask like a metal mask like Cobra Commander, and he's got gold on him like Serpentor. And he's purple like the Shredder from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. While Buick Starpoon, he's a G.I. Joe parody, mostly of Duke from G.I. Joe. Which means, and if you notice his uniform, he's also, a parody of the space hero kind of character and stuff like that. You know, like James T. Kirk, you know, Captain Kirk from Star Trek, Buzz Lightyear, and such characters. Or like Buck Rogers, you get it. And if you see his uniform right there, anyone wearing a similar uniform to Buick Starpoon is part of anyone who's wearing a similar uniform to Buick Starpoon is part of his team in the Space Forces. Looks pretty good. All right. Now, Buick Starpoon is a G.I. Joe parody like the rest of his team, which means he has a military specialty. Buick Starpoon's military specialty is he's a captain in the Space Forces. He captains a starship, and he leads his men in battle against the Scumdogs. Now, the other members of his team are, if you look at this guy with the mohawk over here in this white uniform, his name is Roadhog. His military specialty is that he's an army guy. Before he was with the Space Forces, he was part of the army. He was an army guy. Before he was in the Space Forces, he was an army guy. This bald guy with a gun down here. His name is Beach Pounder. His name is Beach Pounder. His military specialty is that he's a Marine. He's a Marine now, and he's a Marine even though he's a part of the Space Forces. Now, this guy back here in the red uniform driving that vehicle, the guy in this vehicle right here in the red uniform, his name is Blast Tank. His military specialty is that he's a heavy vehicle specialist, a tanker. Now, this cover is one of 3 different variant covers you'll be able to back on my Indiegogo. Now, I should also tell you a bunch of the characters. Death Mug is an arrogant, overblown psychopath who wants to rule the world. He was a former pro athlete. Well, all the Scumdogs were former pro athletes before they were banned and decided to become supervillains. And Buick Starpoon, he mostly hates Death Mug because they're both arrogant idiots. And Buick Starpoon is an arrogant military guy, so, he can't take anyone else's gruff, so he fights Death Mug. All right, anything else? Yeah, that's pretty much explains what it is, so you get an idea. All right. Now, here's Girl Friday. She's part of the Wild Rangers. Well, she's another member of the Wild Rangers. That's the name of Buick Starpoon's team in the Space Forces. Now, Girl Friday was assigned to the Wild Rangers under Buick's, and she, by her superiors in the Space Forces. They assigned her because while the Wild Rangers fight the Scumdogs and save the universe, they're just highly destructive idiots who destroy everything in sight. So to head off any anger from the public, they assigned Girl Friday to basically babysit the Wild Rangers and keep them from causing trouble. And she hates her job because she thinks her career in the military is over because she's basically watching Buick Starpoon. That's Girl Friday. By the way, folks, hit that like button for me, will you? It helps me fight the algorithm. And please share this video out on social media. Share it out on Twitter. Share it out on Facebook. Now we'll look at Death Mug's henchmen. Because in all 80s cartoons, the main villain of the cartoon would have henchmen, and they'd do his bidding, and they'd always be idiots. And these are a parody. These guys are a parody of every henchman from an 80s cartoon. The blue guy with the top hat is Murder Mouth. And the pink guy down here is Sloppy. They work directly under Death Mug to take over the universe, and they're complete morons. You're going to laugh at them. All right. Here's Hair Mill Doctor. Hair Mill Doctor is a parody of Dr. Mindbender from G.I. Joe, a mad scientist. But my mad scientist has been crossed over with a hair mill musician because I thought it'd be awesome to have as a villain. He thinks of all the mad machines and gadgets, all the gadgets and machines the scumdogs use to try and take over the universe. And he looks pretty awesome. Huh? And here we have Miss Breasty Melons. Miss Breasty Melons is a parody of the Baroness from G.I. Joe. But unlike the Baroness, she's a party girl who wants to have fun. She only became a villain because she wanted to have, a good time, or rather she wanted to have, fun. There, that explains the characters right there. So let me exit out of these. Before we look at a UFO wave that has occurred in the past of the various stories, Bianca fights the zombies. Aloha, dudes. Aloha, Bianca fights the zombies. And we have people watching us. Thank you for checking in. Hit that like button for me, as well as please go share this video on social media. Share it on Twitter. Share it on Facebook. Let me see if you guys hit that like button. That's not too bad. Now, let's also, before I do anything else, maybe look at at Indiegogo real quick. Alien Alamo has made $84,676. Let me do this real quick so I can keep up with the chat. Feel free to leave me chats, folks, will you? It really helps me fight the algorithm. Let me move this over here. Feel free to leave me a few chats. Let's see. GHO57 double stars has 28 hours left. It's made, it's 79% funded. So that's not too bad. Gunship Thunder Punch, $786, has made, 24,530. So it's doing pretty good as well. So that's not too bad there. Maybe go over here and see that that's Hokyo is done very well. $4.99. He's made $84,580. Not too bad. Let's see other stuff to look at. Maybe I'll go back over here real quick. Let me do this. Do that. Let's see down here. Nine Devils made 6,197. Stomp 2, the comic book, has made 5,668. That's good as well. Nightmare Theater has made 28,248. So that's good too. Then you take a look down here. Shade's Good Time Girls Indigo Variant Edition has made $292. 45 days left. Not too bad. Right, go down here again. Let's go over here. Sunsworn Wings of Vengeance, 11,775. Too bad. Zombie World of Oz 1, 2, and 3 has made $922. A lot of good books that look very good. Look like fun to read. You get on here. Death Sworn Book 1 has made $51,665. Crypternals has 28 days left. It's made 8,625. That's good right there. Creed Reimaginary has made Bob Rogers, Little Messenger. Hell, keep up the good work, Chris. Thank you. We'll be looking. Feel free to leave a few more chats. We'll be looking at another UFO wave that's occurred in the past today, but I'm looking at a few Indiegogos first. Let's see. Not too bad there. Roken has made 3,497. Not too bad there. Let's see. What else to look at? Go down here again. Wirehead is closed, sadly. Sovereign Wolf Clandestiny has made 25,860, so that's good. Let me go up here. Maybe look at the Crypternals. Do we pass it or not? Maybe take a quick look. Your channel is underrated. Thank you, Bob Rogers, Little Miss Sunshine. Thank you very much. Feel free to keep watching. Looks pretty good. Let's go maybe look at that UFO wave now. A UFO wave, although the bulk of the activity of the UFO wave took place, this was in 52, took place between the months of April and July. Sightings began in abundance almost as soon as the new year took off over the 1951. And from there, they simply increased steadily until the early summer when they simply exploded. In response, also around that period, many independent UFO research groups formed, perhaps most notably the Aerial Phenomenon Research Organization, just to press further how active 1952 was in terms of UFO sightings and reports. According to Edward Rupert's during a 6-month period in 52, 148 of the nation's leading newspapers carried a total of 16,000 items about UFOs. Furthermore, according to the Air Force records, just short of 20% of these sightings remain unexplained. Perhaps one of the most high-profile incidents of the 1952 wave is one that we have examined before, the so-called Washington, D.C. invasion that saw several dish-shaped crafts fly and hover directly over the White House and the nation's capital. The term invasion was dramatic and very accurate. Not, just in the United States. Around the planet, sightings of strange disc-shaped craft were being repeated. Little Miss Sunshine, don't get jaded and you will get your lucky break. Thank you. I have had many UFO sightings. I have a pilot's license too. Good for you. That's great, Little Miss Barb Rogers, Little Miss Sunshine. I've seen UFOs myself. Very few weird ones as well. And talking about it's just fun. Let's see. That and stuff. As with previous and indeed future case study articles concerning such UFO waves, it is only possible to examine a small percent of the incidents that took place here in this article. However, what is clear is 52 was one of the busiest and active years on record and arguably truly signaled the start of the UFO mania that swept around the world. More than a wave, plethora of high-profile and detailed cases, as well as the incident over the White House. We have examined several other sightings previously that were essentially part of the wave of sightings in 1952. For example, several high-profile sightings were reported in California the year, often with the witness being scientists or military personnel. We have also examined an incident that took place around a month before the sightings over the Washington, D.C., when an experienced officer in the Canadian Navy witnessed dozens of lights in a flying silver disc near the American military outpost of Pearl Harbor. Needles Air Force Base, a military facility with seemingly long history with UFO sightings, also found itself in the center of a multi-witness sighting in the summer of 1952, and even American involvement as far as Korea during the Korean War of the early 50s saw several UFO incidents unfold during the conflict. We've also examined in detail the Nash and Fortenberry incident that took place over Newport, Virginia, around the month after Washington invasion incident, at a time when UFO incidents were being reported at a rate of, 20 a day in the United States, and showed several disc-shaped crafts flying in purposeful formation that with the witnesses were experienced airline pilots and only added to the credibility of the case. Yeah, only added. By the way, folks, hit that like button for me as well as please go and, Well, yeah, please hit that like button. It helps me fight the algorithm so more people can see my content. Hit that bell because it will give you, and hit the part of the bell that gives you all future notifications for my videos. And please go and share this video on Twitter and Facebook. What is perhaps airline pilots only added to the credibility of the case? That's it. Airline pilots only added to the credibility of the case. What is perhaps interesting about this last example in particular is the apparent attempts to cover up, dismiss, and discredit what was becoming increasingly apparent to all aspects of the American population, as well as the world's populace in general, that whatever people were seeing in the skies around the planet, they were most definitely seeing something. Hundreds of lesser-known signs would further corroborate. A plethora of things that were done. Before we move on to look at some of these UFO incidents in more detail, we should also remind ourselves of several other activities that, according to some researchers and whistleblowers, took place in the year. And while many of these claims and activities are speculative and indeed controversial, it would be irresponsible to dismiss them in the entirety. For example, we have examined claims previously, the claims of Project Serpo, whose origins lay in the Roswell crash of 47. According to the anonymous former employee of the United States government, not only did this Roswell crash happen, but 2 crafts came to Earth in the night in question. What's more, the military retrieved both the crafts and their occupants. One of them was still alive. This alleged extraterrestrial survivor, according to the anonymous whistleblower, would survive on Earth for 5 years until it died sometime in 1952. By that time, though, it had assisted in aiding the military with reverse engineering, recreating the technology of their crippled craft. As much as we might need to take a pinch of salt, well, maybe, with such claims, it is a coincidence that such a wave of UFO sightings took place at the same time that, if we accept the claims to be true, the United States military, or at least a certain branch of them, managed to recreate an apparent alien craft. Or might the UFO wave of 52 have more to do with another technological device, the apparent extraterrestrial survivor aided in reverse engineering before it perished? Another chat. Let me get this done. An apparent communication device that opened up dialogue between our world. Bob Rogers. I can't share anything on Twitter because I'm banned for life and 2 days left in Facebook jail. I'm just phony, huh? I wouldn't say that. Well, I'd love to have you. Hey, want to come on, Miss Little Bob Rogers, Little Miss Sunburn? I could have you on. Put a link in the chat, and you could talk to us about it. Dialogue between our planet and the race of this. Well, of the survivor. Okay. Bizarre of further interest and perhaps essential to the backstory of the 1952 UFO wave is another alleged secret program that would unfold in 1952, Project Penguin. And once again, while a pinch or two of salt may be required for claims, I'm a effing beer. Now, I don't want to swear, Miss Little Bob Rogers, Little Miss Sunshine. I'm just trying not to get make problems for myself. But yeah, I can basically say that you are one mean woman. I'll say that much. But as I said, do you want to come on? Phonic is a sketch therapy thing. Phonic. Oh, okay. She's a phonic. She's phonic. That's pretty good. Phoning. Or you mean phoning in. Okay, phoning. Right. Now, once again, with a pinch of salt may be required, claims behind Project Penguin are intriguing themselves. These sessions were essentially, I'm mean. Okay, you're mean. You're one mean woman who's very awesome as well. These sessions were essentially channeling sessions by Dr. Henry. They were also attended by several notable figures in the world of mysticism, industry, and entertainment. Perhaps one of the most interesting was Dr. Vinard, who claimed to make contact with an entity to itself as the Nine during the sessions, and an eternal presence who watched over humanity. Interestingly, one of those in attendance of these sessions was Star Trek creator Gene Roddenberry. Many question just how many of the ideas of the Star Trek series, and not least from Deep Space Nine, from later films, a result of these sessions. What is interesting to us here is whether these apparent channeling sessions resulted in some kind of portal interdimensional connection that allowed such crafts from elsewhere in the universe to come here in abundance. Whatever the reasons for the UFO waves of the late 40s, early 50s, the United States government had been extremely busy behind closed doors since at least the Roswell incident of 1947. Whether these background events have a direct or indirect connection on the UFO wave sightings during 1952 is open to debate. That the United States government and military had more of an interest in such sightings than they publicly declared, however, is perfectly obvious to all. A discreet beginning. 1952 began to unfold. It became clear to all with an interest in UFO sightings and a strange aerial phenomenon that actively appeared to be more vibrant than the previous 12 months. And while there were hundreds of reports and record throughout the year, this sudden increase in strange activity would seemingly catch both the world's authorities and the press off guard. Although it isn't clear when the following incident occurred, other than it was sometime in 52, and an account from Dryford Wells told in the Book of Modern Mysteries by Janet and stuff. Board is most certainly worth including here, not least as the details are strikingly similar to a Brazilian, to a case in Brazil, something that we will examine in a moment. Just give me a wrench and I'm happy. Okay, that's good, little Miss Sunshine. I love that idea. During an afternoon walk, Neil Thomas would spot a shiny metallic object ahead in the sandy dunes upon which he was walking. He continued forward several more steps before seeing the object was clearly a disc shape, and what's more, several men were stood on its surface. He continued forward before one of the men told him to stop. He would claim he would be hurt by the rays from the craft as he didn't have any protective clothing. Thomas claimed that the men informed him they had been coming to the planet for hundreds of years. What's more, they claimed there was concerned with the self-destructive path of humanity. While these kinds of claims often automatically make people distance themselves from such incidents, many similar messages were relayed to witnesses in other similar close contact encounters. The breach cottage, maybe I should say this, close contact encounters. Let's see. There's another chat. I wish I could super chat on me. I gave a Yellow Flash 2 $50 last night. He was surprised. I wish you could as well. But I have to make it to 1,000 subscribers or get a lot more people watching my show before I can do that. But I'm getting up there. Yes, just share this out to other people, Luma Sunburn, and help me make it to 1,000 subscribers, and I'll be able to take any you give me. All right. Perhaps one of the most intriguing sightings of early 52 would come from him in Brazil. The exact date is unknown, other than it took place in late January, early February, around 3 a.m. at night. In question, airline pilot Cheskov was awakened by an explosive noise outside the beach cottage as he was sleeping in. When he looked forward to a window, a bright blue and white light was glowing outside. He would return to sleep shortly after as the glow faded. However, the following morning, his grandmother would claim she had gone outside to see the loud noise. When she had done so, she witnessed several objects that appeared like inverted soup plates. Furthermore, they appeared blue with an orange glow to them. Keep working on it. You'll get there. Thank you, Bob. Thank you, little Miss Sunburn. All right. She claims she watched the disc for, maybe do that. Yeah. She claimed to watch the disc for around 30 minutes as they hovered above the water. On occasion, even more bizarre, she would claim to have witnessed two human figures suddenly emerge from the inside the craft and walk on the top of it for several moments. As if looking around their surroundings, they would then disappear back inside the glowing saucer-shaped object. His grandmother continued to watch the scene and told how she watched both of the crafts disappear directly, into the sky. They would watch them disappear into the sky. They would do so one after the other and vanished in a matter of moments. Military pilots experiencing more encounters. Shortly after midnight, the 22nd January, around radar outposts of Nina in Alaska would track a fast-moving object. Now, let me get to these new chats. Loomis Sunburn. Ooh, a bunch of little things there. Thank you, and more of them. Thank you, Bob Rogers, Loomis Sunburn. January ground radar post in Alaska would track a fast-moving target moving near the Fairbanks region. Unbelievably, to those watching, the object was moving around 2,000 miles per hour. Furthermore, the 3 radar systems on board already airborne F-94 fighter jets also picked up the aerial anomalies. Later on that day, on the other side of the United States, just south of Mitchell Air Force Base in New York, came another military encounter just before 10 a.m. A bomber would give a chase to a disc-shaped white craft with a dome on its upper half. After several moments, the shiny craft vanished into the distance at unbelievable speed. And even more of them. Thank you for another chat. Just keep doing it. I love hearing from them. But as I said, do you want to come on board my show? I would love to hear your UFO experience. Several weeks later, on the evening of the 1st of February, near Terre Haute in Indiana, yet another military pilot would witness bizarre events while airborne on this occasion. The pilot in question would witness, I should say, do you want to come on board my show, Bob Rogers, Little Miss Sunburn? I can leave a link for you in the chat for you to come on. I'd love to hear your story. On this occasion, the pilot in question would witness several moving lights. What's more, they would change colors from blue to yellow. Just over a week later, over the city in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, 2 United States Air Force pilots witnessed a strange yellow-orange object while flying a Beech AT-11 trainer plane. The following evening in nearby Baltimore, Maryland, a United States Air Force C-47 pilot, along with his co-pilot, would witness a bright white object moving slowly at first before disappearing away into the distance. Fiery silver discs and flashing neon lights. On the morning of 4th March near Arisea Air Force Base in Japan, a bright orange oval-shaped object was witnessed by several experienced United States Air Force pilots. 3 days later, between Commodore Tuska, Oklahoma, and the American Midwest, another Air Force pilot witnessed a bright blinking light passing underneath his C-54 transport plane. Early on the morning of 13th March of Hleflik in, Iceland, 2 different radars, one on the ground and one with a GCA team. Keep your eyes to the skies and you'll see many UFOs too. I know, I've seen them before myself. In fact, I would like to talk about my own UFO experiences, but I think I'll leave it for a different video. Early on the morning of 13th March, when one on board a United States C-47 airplane would pick up several unidentified aircraft. At just after 7 a.m., it appeared. What do you think about all this, folks? Of these stories here about the 52 UFO wave, about these pilots, about all these people seeing this stuff? Very interesting, huh? When you live in the wilderness, you see a lot of strange things. I sort of live I live on the outskirts of a city and stuff like that. Of a small city and stuff, so there's that as well. So I can see the sky pretty well, I think. Let's see. Let's see. Let's see. As I said, I think. Let's see. After his experience with United States Air Force pilots, 3 days later, let me read that again. Pardon me. Was witnessed by several experienced United States Air Force pilots. 3 days later, between Claymore and Tulsa in Oklahoma in the American Midwest, another Air Force pilot witnessed a bright blinking light passing beneath his C-54 transport plane. Early in the morning of 13th March of Iceland, different radars. The ground with a team and one aboard a United States C-47 airplane would pick up several unidentified aircraft at just after 7 a.m. It appeared to be at an altitude of around 8,000 feet and moving at a rate of greater than 250 knots. The following evening in Hawaii, 2 disc-shaped crafts would speed toward a Navy plane transporting Navy Secretary Dan Kimball to the island. Kimball would later describe the speed of these strange objects as amazing. Furthermore, according to the estimations of his pilots, the objects were moving between 1,500 and 2,000 miles per hour. In the early hours of the 26th March, several military personnel on several different B-50D planes witnessed red-green running lights. By the way, folks, hit that like button for me. It helps me fight the algorithm as well as so more people can see my videos, as well as hit that bell and hit the part of the bell that gives you all future notifications for my videos, as well as please go share this video on Twitter and Facebook. All right, let's get back to what we were reading. Which moved at high speed over Fort Stockton, Texas. Later that same day in Long Beach, California. Long Beach, huh? What do you think is happening here, folks? People are seeing aliens in 1952. The government's doing its best to basically make sure no one is basically, well, talking about the truth, trying to make sure no one believes any of this. And do you think they actually did any good? No, because apparently this set off a bunch of stuff that would later happen in other UFO waves. California, two yellow discs passed overhead, creating radio interference as they did so. 3 days later, over several uranium mines in Belgium, Congo, 29th March, two fiery discs were witnessed. After moving around in a bizarre zigzag motion, they would take off into the distance at great speed. Later the same day, in Maryland, in the eastern side of the United States, two witnesses report 50-foot, silver disc. 50-foot silver disc, huh? A wave underway in all but name. April, June. Well, from April to June. April, June. Although there was a slight increase in UFO activity in the opening months of the year, it was so discreet that no one would have predicted that what lay ahead in terms of such a dramatic increase in sightings and reports. However, as April progressed and morphed into May, and turned to June, it became apparent, at least to UFO investigators who were beginning to themselves to become more organized. And I said about this is what happened. UFO organizations were becoming, investigators and organizations were starting to appear. And these would happen, and these would investigate UFO waves that would come after this one and stuff. So this is where all the UFO organizations really began. There a few of them may have been before this year, but this is where they really began to become into the main light, to become more well known. That an apparent wave was underway. The national press, however, and certainly anyone operating. Let's see. Bob Rogers, Loomis Sunburn, new chat here. When you have a boulder half the size of a car thrown at you, I mean, the Sasquatch wants you out of his territory. That happened to a friend of a friend in northern Alberta on some remote road. That big, huh? That's a pretty big, strong creature, and I believe you. Bigfoot are known to basically throw rocks at people, boulders and stuff, to get them out of their territory. So that is interesting as well. Thank you for bringing it up. All right. Who morphed into that? It became apparent, at least the national press, however, and certainly anyone operating in official capacity, the United States government, this is where they were trying to basically cover it up. Our military would pay little attention to this discrete increase. The humanoid giant's bizarre accounts of Rose C. On the evening of 10th going to the 11th of April, 24-year-old Rose C. had made her way to the stone. Hey, little Miss Sunburn, how many people do you think saw actual Bigfoot during the 52 UFO wave, huh? These things tend to happen together because the Bigfoot seems to have something to do with UFOs as well. Let's see. To the stone her family owned so that she could spend the night there. So she could spend the night there and hopefully get some work done in this peace and quiet. She was recently divorced and now living with her father. With her four-year-old daughter was spending the evening with her grandparents. She had taken her dogs to Metsit to take advantage of the time by herself. However, later that night, she was awakened by the sound of dogs growling. Thinking someone might be watching this particular building, she took the dogs and set out to another maze close by, also owned by her father. However, as she did so, she would suddenly be in the presence of four strangers, which were positively giants, standing around 8 feet tall. The normal-sized man appeared to be an interpreter of sorts and spoke to Rose in perfect French. Interpreter, huh? He claimed the three giant humanoids were from a faraway world. Rose would later, the three giant humanoids had an appearance that they might have passed for Hindus. One of the three men with them looked older and seemingly of a higher rank. He had a strange black half marble in the middle of his forehead and also carried a box with buttons on a strap around his head. French. Yeah, French. They're French. Thank you for another chat, little Bob Rogers, little Miss Sunburn. Perhaps sensing her confusion. Yeah. He had around his head a strap with around his neck and stuff. There's that as well, with buttons on a strap around his neck, around his head. Perhaps sensing her confusion, the normal-sized man explained that 20 years earlier, when he was only 25 years old, he too had met these extraterrestrials. As he had no family or responsibilities, he had agreed to go with them, acting as a go-between as he was doing now. He then asked if they might take some of her books. Some truly remarkable details. Rose would express how young he looked for his mid-40s. However, he would comment that up there, time passed much less quickly and that he wasn't that old. What he would tell her next, though, if true, rings a lot of bells for some researchers. According to the mystery gentleman, these giant extraterrestrials had set up the Earth in order that humans might inhabit it. What's more, they had even put the moon in place in order to create the conditions required for life to develop and thrive on Earth. However, through circumstances that were not explained, this particular human colony had become a penal colony, banished individuals. What's more, these apparent cosmic but very human prisoners were essentially the collective ancestors of the human population today. There are several intriguing details to examine about this apparent encounter, not least the apparent seeding of the planet by extraterrestrials. That sounds very similar to the basic claims of the ancient astronauts, as well as the notions that other humans exist elsewhere in the universe, with Earth essentially being a prison planet. Perhaps even more bizarre that the moon was set at a natural satellite, but had not been purposely placed into orbit by the highly advanced. But had been, it's not a natural satellite. But had been purposely placed into orbit by, extraterrestrials. French or Quebec? French. I think they don't say they're anything but French. I think they're French, not Quebec. One last thought, given that the legends of giants in antiquity, the giant humanoids have indeed been human, but of a different size as dictated by the conditions of their home planet, might the initial wave of humans, if we accept the account of Rose reservedly for a moment, have also been significantly taller, only dropping to a more reflective height of modern humans through breeding with other hominids and the evolutionary factors of our own planet? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. Have examined all of this idea in previous articles. Let's see. An incident in Burra, Brazil, in May, is not only one of the most well-known incredible cases of the 1952 wave, but arguably in the history of UFOs, and what's more, in a complete contrast to the attitude and findings of the United States. Maybe. Okay. Now, folks, what do you think about what we've done? This woman basically talking with giant humanoids, what we're having that happened in France. This guy who says she talked with, as well as the giant aliens she met. What do you think about all of that? Now we're talking about, what do you think about that? Now let's get back to this article. The Air Force investigation, despite not being released until several years later in 1959, was drastically more transparent, positive, and ultimately found that photographs taken during the sighting were completely genuine. You could see one of those pictures below. Look at this. Look at that. All right. On the afternoon of the 7th May at around 4:30 p.m., reporter John Martins and press photographer Ed Kiefel were in Burra de Jica, region due to reports of a flying disc in the area several days earlier. Suddenly, Martins would spot something strange heading toward the location out of the bright afternoon sky. At first, he thought the object was simply a plane. However, not only was it moving much faster than a plane, it appeared to be flying sideways. It was at this point that Martins yelled, "Shoot, Kiefel," in an effort to encourage the photographer to capture the bizarre object above. He was already raising his camera and managed to capture 5 pictures in approximately 60 seconds. Although many people have stated their belief that the pictures are nothing more than fakes, many other UFO independent researchers, including the aforementioned Brazilian military investigation, conclude the pictures are likely genuine. Yeah, all right. Arguably some of the most credible photographs in UFO history. Although the photographs did appear in print several weeks after the incident, it was in the publication for which both men worked. Furthermore, neither tried to derive any financial profit from the pictures. Martins would state the pictures in their report on the incident. We were at a time exclusively contracted by their paper, by their magazine, and there we handed in our report and the photos without receiving any extra bonuses for either. Neither did we receive, nor did we wish to, any payment from anybody, either for the account for the photos for the parents we were practically obliged to make. On different occasions on television, and narrated the fact in free talks to the military authorities and universal auditoriums. Martins would continue that he did not know what the object was, and so, as far as he was concerned, by definition, it was an indifferent flying object. He would also further state that because of the sighting, he had since gone on to undertake considerable research of similar cases. All over the place, huh? Let me read that part again. Very interesting what we read here, huh? With these guys, what they did here. What the photos they took. Oh, here's another one. Look at that one. I mean, yeah, it's just a circular disc, but look at that thing. It's very entertaining, right? The positioning of the sun and the reflection of it on the object appears to be key in determining the pictures are indeed genuine. However, the fourth picture at least according to skeptics, shows this lighting coming from the right instead of the left, as the others show. Detractors from the skeptical anomaly state that this is merely a result of the complex growth of the hillside, which results in no clear object and shadow pattern. Furthermore, for the light to shine from the right side would mean the sun would have to be in a position in the sky it simply never is in this part of the world. More yellow, red, orange discs in the summer. Another sighting, strange yellow round object occurred on, yellow cream object occurred in the evening of 5th May over New Jersey. On the night in question, Miss Jensen witnessed the 6 or 7 translucent cream yellow objects in the night sky. They remained visible for around 5 minutes. A little under a week later, on the 10th May in Phobos, Krypus, a British scientist witnessed a luminous circular object seemingly rise out of the sea. It would hover overhead for several moments before fading away from sight. On the same day, over the Atlantic in Elton, South Carolina, 4 employees of the DuPont Company would report a disc-shaped craft near the Savannah River plant. 3 days later, around 10:30 p.m. in Greenville, South Carolina, several amateur astronomers witnessed a reddish yellow oval object through their telescopes. Oh, it's very entertaining, huh? Look at this stuff. All right. Let's see. They were only sight for several seconds, however, then vanished out of sight. The following evening, in South America, a former United States Air Force pilot, Mr. Stipes, witnessed 2 shiny orange spears. They remained visible for around half an hour before disappearing. As the sighting continued, in Eastern Europe, a close encounter and incident of a more direct kind was to unfold. The Ukraine campfire incident. The Ukraine, huh? Campfire. Perhaps one of the strangest incidents occurred around May-June 1952 in Ukraine. It comes to us via veteran and respected UFO researcher Albert Rosales, who has compiled an extensive database of humanoid encounters, which not only featured a sighting of very similar craft to the ones being seen all over America, but it also featured close interaction with the apparent occupants. A young boy who was, enjoying a time of camp when a sudden strong wind came out of nowhere and caused those horses to take cover, and many of the adults chasing after them in order to get them back under control. When the young boy looked, only he and the lone elderly woman were left around the fire. There was at a camp when a sudden strong wind came out of nowhere and caused the horses to take cover, and many of the adults chasing after them in order to get them back. We're left around the fire, huh? Okay, let's get down to this. Then a bright flash of light announced itself from the nearby woodland. A moment later, the strange light in the shape of a dome rose into the sky. From out of the brightness of the glow, three strange humanoids made their way toward the pair in the camp. They appeared human-like aside from their heads, which were larger than normal and featureless. They also wore some kind of helmet as well as a tight-fitting suit. Then the scene took on an even more bizarre twist. The three alien entities would approach the fire, talking between themselves as they did so. Their language appeared to have a hissing quality to it. As they spoke, the young boy noticed the woman pick up a hand of dust from her bag. She would throw this substance into the fire, causing it to make a strange cackling sound. She would repeat this action, causing the entities to keep their distance. They would remain there on the other side of the crackling fire for 15 minutes. They would then turn back to their glowing domed craft, which then rose into the air and vanished at great speed. The wave, July through August. July, huh? There is no doubt, however, despite the increase in sightings and activity in the first half of the year, the absolute peak of 52 UFO wave occurred in July and into August, for example, according to figures from Project Blue Book. A total of 401 UFO reports were made in July 1952. Even more intriguing, 320 of those, 75% of them, would occur in the final 2 weeks of the month. Captain Edward Rupert would further remark that UFO sightings in 52 were double the rate compared to the previous year. What could be an important factor here, at least in some of the public awareness of UFOs, was a thread which ran through many stories in the national media regarding how prepared the United States military and indeed the government actually were in the event that one of these UFOs attacked, or even in the face of a full-scale alien invasion. The rhetoric, combined with the already increase in sightings, undoubtedly had members of the American public taking a greater interest in the skies above them. Was the sudden increase in sightings at a time when sightings were already increasing anyway a result of a panic-stricken public? Or was it a case of the more eyes looking upwards resulting in more anomalies being seen? Whatever the reason, as we examined shortly, almost like a flickering of a switch on already busy period UFO reports would suddenly explode. Already busy period. First, though, we will examine some of these incidents that built up to this explosion. Within an explosion of activity, and what's more, the vast majority of these sightings were saucer or disc-shaped objects. Certainly nothing that would be considered a terrestrial or conventional aircraft of the contemporary era, or indeed the modern one. Like flicking a switch. Like flicking on, huh? All right. Feel free to leave me a few more chats, folks, as well as hit that like button for me. It really helps me fight the algorithm, so feel free to do so. As well as please share this video out on Twitter and Facebook. The increase was almost immediately. Around 7:30 a.m. on the 1st of July in Lynn and Bedford, Massachusetts, two F-94 military jets were scrambled to intercept an apparent UFO set following a report from the member of the Volunteer Observer Cops. Several minutes later, local residents, Mr. Nelson, witnessed a bright silver cigar-shaped object about 6 times as long as it was wide. Even more bizarre and almost identical UFO would pass overhead in a short time later. 2 hours later, at Fort Mammoth, New Jersey, the same objects were spotted along the east coast of Bizarrely, whether coincidence or not, as soon as the Air Force radar became aware of the object, it would speed up dramatically in the direction of Washington, D.C. Bizarrely, whether coincidentally or not, since the Air Force radar became aware of the object, it would speed up dramatically in the direction of Washington, D.C. A short time later, physics professor, at George Washington University, a physics professor, George Washington University, would spot and report a dull gray, smoky-colored object hovering in the sky. When the professor would speak to the press regarding the sighting, he would claim, based on the number of people in the street, that there would be at least 500 witnesses to the incident. The following day, in Tremonton, Utah, Navy photographer Delbert Newhouse and his wife would witness and film over a dozen shiny silver objects moving through the skies over the highway on which they were driving. Interestingly, as we have examined in previous articles, when the Navy returned the frames to News House, he would discover several key frames missing. These actions, of course, we can see now in retrospect, would seemingly become commonplace in the decades that would follow. Media. On the 9th of July, several more sightings of strange and aerial anomalies were making headlines in the United States. Perhaps one of the first significant sightings that day came just at 1 p.m. Colorado Springs, Colorado. Air Force pilot Major Claude Griffin, Major Claude, would witness a strange Clyde. It's about to call him Claude. Maybe we should just call him Major Clyde. Strange white aircraft moving radically overhead. Several hours later, around 3:30 p.m. in Rapid City, South Dakota, a sergeant and three airmen would witness you get that right? Would witness a sergeant and three airmen would witness three milky white discs flying at an altitude between 30,000 feet and 40,000 feet. 40,000 feet. All of the witnesses would state the objects were moving faster than any jet aircraft. They were in sight for approximately, only 5 seconds. Okay, it was a few minutes. It was longer than that. At 6:30 p.m. in Kurtzman, Pennsylvania, farmer John Mandel witnessed an aluminum oval-shaped object overhead. The strange craft would move in several directions as well as changing altitudes several times. Then it disappeared into the distance. 2 hours later in Ovo, Quinton, Virginia, National Airlines pilot would witness a stationary amber glow that suddenly disappeared in the distance. At just 8 a.m., evening 12th July, reports of multiple strange crafts were reported in the north of Illinois. Some reports would suggest they were moving around 30,000 miles per hour. Hour later, in Williams Bay, Wisconsin, radars would pick up several similar objects moving at a similarly blistering pace. As busy as the first 2 weeks of July undoubtedly were, especially across the United States, UFO activity, off the scale, is going off the scale now. Second half of July. On the evening of 15th July in Pennington, Oregon, multiple witnesses, including an Oregon state trooper, would report a silver-colored spherical object moving with great speed overhead at an approximate altitude of 4,000 feet. It would disappear toward the north, interestingly, around 10 minutes following its disappearance. 6 B-36 military aircraft were also witnessed heading in the same direction. On the same evening, on the other side of the United States, in West Palm Beach in Florida, 3 witnesses would report a disc-shaped craft hovering over Palm Beach International Airport. The craft, according to the witnesses, was silver when it moved, but bizarrely appeared muddy when motionless. Less than 12 hours later, that little after 9:30 a.m. on the 16th, just in Beverly, Massachusetts, United States Coast Guard photographer witnessed several bright lights from his air station photo lab. Unfortunately, he was clearing his camera at the time. Clearing his camera. Time of the sighting with the object only visible for a matter of seconds. At the same time, a short distance away in Hampton Road, Virginia, 2 amber-colored objects witnessed by an aeronautical engineer, Paul Hill, moving with a speed through the sky and turning on their own axis as they did so. The 48 hours over the 17th and 18th July would see multiple other UFO instances, far too many for us to cover all of them here as always. However, some stand the test of a little more than others. Sightings of silver discs across America. For example, between 1 a.m. and 4 a.m. on the 17th July, Lockbourne Air Force Base in Ohio, 2 guards would witness a circular object with an orange and green glow. They were at approximately 5,000 feet. They would watch it for several minutes before it eventually disappeared, including the same or very similar objects appeared over the base of the following morning. That including them. As of the 17th July unfolded, multiple sightings would occur. For example, at around 1 a.m. in Batesville, Mississippi, a state highway patrolman would witness several round fluorescent colored objects, each around 100 feet across. They moved at various altitudes, from 3,000 to 11,000 feet, and were visible for around half an hour. Several hours later, at a little after 3 a.m. in White Plains, New York, Miss Florence Daly would report two round bluish objects flying in formation overhead. Perhaps bizarrely, perhaps not only Daly would report hearing many feminine voices. The objects moved ahead. Well, with the objects as they moved ahead. She'd hear them and stuff as the objects were moved ahead. Okay, let's move on here. How much more do I have of this left? Not that much more. I think I can finish this off. All right. Damn. Right there. I think here we are. Yeah, here we are. Morning of 18th July, Florida. A parent and daughter witnessed a peck silvery bubble fly moving at great pace. Miami, Florida. A parent and a daughter witnessed a opaque silvery bubble fly moving at great pace across the sky. At around the same time, several United Air Force officers witnessed several red-orange lights moving across the sky. Later that same day, an American airline pilot witnessed several strange lights moving back and forth. His location, Denver, Colorado. The same day, across the Atlantic Ocean in France, a sighting would unfold that resulted in one of the best UFO photographs on record. Lake Chauvet. Photographs on record. A rough photograph, huh? All right, let's get into this. All right. Sighting 18th July, Lake Chauvet in France, would result in another photograph captured by a witness. And what's more, interestingly or not, it would also look remarkably similar to the many other objects captured around the world before and after 1952. The witness in question, an engineer and photographer, Andre, would capture the images while working around the lake. Despite the bizarre nature of the object he had captured, he would remain convinced that he had actually witnessed some natural phenomenon or another. He was aware of UFOs and the craze that was sweeping the world. However, he claimed it was his belief that distance in space was too great to travel. In space, huh? Many others who scrutinized the pictures, however, would disagree. They believe the pictures had almost captured a nuts and bolts craft. Yeah. Well, only question was whether or not it or a larger craft upon which it had traveled had indeed managed to solve the difficulties of interstellar travel. All right. The photographs continue to divide opinion, but they do appear to have stood the test of time. The unanimous decision of photographic experts in the pictures are indeed a genuine, credible shot of a UFO. An over-reliance, voluntary observers. The already mentioned Nash Fortenberry sighting was almost in part the sudden increase in aerial activity 5 days after the incident. 19th July, Washington, D.C. invasion incident would unfold. This incident alone would perhaps understandably would send the press coverage and with it public speculation to absolute overdrive. By stage, the ground observer, a voluntary service of residents watching the skies, would begin reporting UFOs at a blustering rate. And what was particularly interesting was essentially under the control of the United States, and was apparent lack of restrictions on how GOCs, how could speak to him and where their reports went, including to the press. And according to some GOC, reports were coming out on an hourly basis. Furthermore, these reports were not just coming from the United States and Europe. After midnight on the 20th July, Dil El Burgu, Morocco, a local man, Pidgin, would report witnessing a disc-shaped object landing on the ground as it took off, a glowing strange bluish glow. Also report a strong smell of sulfur. Immediately following the takeoff, this is something that comes up repeatedly in UFO reports. Around the same time, back in the United States, several military witnesses watched several saucer-shaped craft going over Andrews Air Force Base in Maryland. Despite the visual signs of an orange and red orb-type craft, the radar system was unable to pick up on anything unusual. Unbeknownst to those involved at the time, witnesses in two different states were likely viewing the same object at the same time. Coast-to-coast UFO sightings go into overdrive. From military personnel to Andrews Air Force Base, watching the bizarre craft over the military facility in Maryland, three different sets of witnesses in the state of New York, Pennsylvania also reported seeing two orange, yellow lights with some dull red color. One of them was a university professor on a yacht on the Delaware River. The following day, on the 21st July, the radar system, at Dobbins Base in Georgia, witnessed an unidentified ship moving slowly at approximate altitude of 52,000 feet. Then a second object moving much faster than the first appeared on the screen. It remained motionless for several minutes before disappearing from the screen. Later that afternoon, a military wife based on Rundorf Air Force Base in Converse, Texas, witnessed a strange elongated object moving overhead. She would estimate it was moving at around 3,100 miles per hour. It was around 3 to 5 minutes. That same evening, Rockville, Indiana, at a little after 8 p.m., three military pilots witnessed a dark gray triangular-shaped object moving overhead. It appeared to be at altitude of around 1,000 feet and moved at around 60 miles per hour. It would suddenly stop and hover for several moments before disappearing into the distance. Around the same time, in the Brooksville sighting, two military pilots would continue to encounter a UFO while airborne over Beluga Lake in Alaska. Despite attempts to intercept the object, it ultimately disappeared from their sights and their radar screens. Whether it was the same object or not, three witnesses over San Marcos Air Force Base Texas, Air Force Base, would report a blue circle with a blue trail moving over their base at 700 miles per hour. This, of course, would be near sonic speed. An hourly, daily thing. These kinds of signs and encounters would continue with multiple reports. What do you think, people, with all the UFO sightings these people are seeing? Can you believe that the military would still try to basically say it was all just bunk, all just lies and stuff like that, or just misidentification? Well, would continue with for the rest of July. Sightings and encounters would continue for the rest of July, and while the vast majority of these sightings would most definitely, July, and while the vast majority of these sightings would most definitely from the United States, bizarre aerial activity was taking place all around. Is the heart chakra? Maybe. Who knows? Looks pretty good. It looks pretty good. Barb Rogers, little sunburn. Bizarre aerial activity was taking place all around the planet during this time. For example, on the 23rd July, Charles Buck in Westfield, Maine, would report seeing three silver discs at a high altitude. On the same evening, two almost identical discs were reported in Nahant, Massachusetts. It is truly interesting time what made all of these, for the most part, level-headed world citizens. Bob Rogers, little, green is the heart. Yep, that is true. Bob Rogers, little sunburn. Charles Buck. Charles in Westfield, Maine, would report seeing three silver discs at high altitude. On the same evening, two almost identical discs were reported and stuff. It is truly interesting time what made all of these, for the most part, level-headed world citizens were suddenly see or experience strange objects at roughly the same time, other than that there really was something solid and real in the skies above our planet. And while the wave of such incidents, while still a daily occurrence, were slowing somewhat, public awareness, indeed interest in them, most certainly wasn't. Bob Rogers, Little Miss Sunbird, Charles Brodsky, who knows, maybe. Did I misread that? Charles Buck, his name is that, in Westfield and stuff, Maine and stuff. Charles there saw something. And it is truly, let me read what he saw there and like that. It's truly, the article, what they saw was truly interesting. Yeah, what these witnesses experienced and stuff. Let me reread this part. It is truly interesting. It is truly interesting what made all of these, for the most part, level-headed world citizens suddenly see or experience these strange objects at roughly the same time, rather than that there really was something solid and real in the skies above our world. And while the wave of such incidents was still a daily occurrence, it was slowing somewhat. But awareness of indeed interest in them most certainly wasn't. All right, let's see about what happens at these military bases. Just after midnight on the 7th August, over the town of Karakad in Holland, an American serviceman, Will Jensen, would witness a disc-shaped craft zigzagged overhead before swooping out of the night sky and eventually shooting out of sight and breathtaking speed. At the same time, back in the United States, in San Antonio, Texas, just after 9 a.m., Susan Pizzle witnessed four multicolored objects that appeared similar to white-hot metal. There were no aerodynamic features noticed by the witness, nor did she notice any obvious signs of propulsion. Despite the amazing speed of the craft, the witness would report that they didn't make a sound. Several sightings were also reported from the American military base in Japan. In early August, on the evening of the 10th August, for example, at just about 10 p.m., an American military pilot witnessed a strange object descend out of the night sky at an altitude around 8,000 feet, around 15,000 feet in a matter of seconds. At almost the same time, 3 nights later, 13th August, over the capital of Tokyo, United States Marine pilot Major McGough, let's call him just Major Magoo, would report on a similar orange glowing craft. Once again, it was an altitude around 8,000 feet. Or maybe we should call him Major McGiff. Around 8,000 feet and moved at a speed of excess of 2,000 miles per hour. Furthermore, much like the encounter 3 nights earlier, it would spiral down to an altitude of around 1,500 feet. It remained visible, hovering around 2 to 3 minutes before it disappeared as if it went out. This detail is another that shows up in more than we might think, and as though the object was switched off as opposed to moving away into the distance. A slower but still intense pace. Although they would continue at a much slower pace than the 2-week period, end of July and stuff, and stuff like that, and the opening days of August, strange signs of a greatly similar nature to those would continue throughout the remaining days of the month. There were, however, some that would stand out even among the plethora of incidents taking place at the time. One incident took place at 6 a.m. at the morning of 24th August in Frontex, Kansas. As the witness was walking through the woodland, he would discover a bizarre object on the ground. He would later describe it as being like 2 turtle shells glued together, approximately 25 meters long. Even more bizarre, there was a front cabin to this strange object in which it sat a humanoid creature. Behind the windows of the cabin, an intense blue light shone outward. Furthermore, there was an uncomfortable buzzing in the immediate vicinity. As the witness continued to watch the bizarre scene, the strange object suddenly rise into the air with little effort. It rose straight ahead. The following day, at the same region, a local radio musician, William Scaries, would report a platter-shaped object of a dulled silver color as he drove away in the highway. The region, like the witness the day before, Shevitz would also report a strange throbbing feeling in the air as the object passed. The relative slowdown. Well, from the and stuff. The relative slowdown now. Following the breakneck pace of UFO sightings over the summer, especially July and August, there was a distinct and clear drop-off in UFO activity. That being said, this was only relatively speaking. Sightings and encounters continued to unfold, and what's more, witnesses would continue to report their encounters. Before we examine some of these sightings, the Claim 52 and the Wave, an incident from the evening of 1st November from Hellingen, Germany, is one of the most controversial. It appears to tell of a drowned, otherworldly craft. UFO researcher Kevin Randall writes the encounter in the book in the history of UFO crashes. According to this report, atmospheric problems caused the crash. While the craft itself appeared largely undamaged, several of the occupants of the craft witnessed laying on the ground nearby, apparently having been thrown clear of the craft or having dragged themselves from it. It isn't clear if the men were dead or not, but witnesses claim they were most definitely badly burned. Whether the incident is accurate or not is perhaps open to debate. However, despite science slowing down, this potential UFO crash occurred at a time when authorities and UFO enthusiasts were almost overwhelmed with sustained assault of UFO sightings. It is perfectly feasible that such an incident was buried among the mountain of other sightings taking place. The encounter of Jan. Another bizarre and humanoid sighting occurred in the evening, 4th September. Sun at Loire, and Chauvin at Loire in France. Jean Sebrin's gene heater was camping in the region when he witnessed what he would describe as a star falling from the sky. Upon standing, he could see an airship-shaped craft barely over 100 feet away from him on the ground in a nearby field. Right? The craft, approximately 20 feet in length and around 6 feet height. On the side were two windows which glowed with what appeared to be an internal light. This light would change colors discreetly. He was staring at the craft so intently that he didn't notice the strange men. Who were seemingly several feet away from him. At first, he believed this mysterious figure was much taller than him. However, after several seconds, the creature proved to be standing on some kind of platform. As the strange creature stood down from the equally strange platform, he could see that it was barely 5 feet tall and certainly shorter than he. At first, the strange creature backed away, but after several moments, apparently sensing Gene was a threat, he came forward, standing only several feet away from him. Gene would recall how the creature looked almost human aside from a larger than normal head and eyes. After several more moments, the human once more back away in the shadows and disappeared. A similar encounter took place in France the same year in Charlton. While taking a late night walk, a young couple had a large crashing sound followed by an unusual silence. They couldn't, however, see anything to indicate any type of craft. When they heard strange muffled voices in a strange language, although the couple backed away into the shadows until another crash silenced them again. Let's see. There. By November, while still very active, the comparison to the surge of sightings that throughout the summer UFO incidents were slowing down somewhat. There were several accounts that stood out, however, including one in particular from Brazil. In the town of, for example, a 9-year-old girl who would witness a strange aerial object the size of a bus while she played with her brother and her friends near their home. Even more bizarre, the object would come to a stop over the children who were playing. Then a door similar to an elevator door opened in the side of the object, and an arrow-like metallic object. Yeah, some object came out of it, huh? How much more do I have of this? At this site of this, the children ran to take cover at the perimeters of a nearby school. The witness, however, realizing her brother was missing, ran straight home to inform her parents. They also, along with several neighbors, would search frantically for the young boy. Well, to no avail, they would report him missing to the local police. Then a truly bizarre twist would unfold. The police department from a nearby town would contact the police and the police. They would inform them that they had discovered a young boy, the same as the boy that one they had missing in their town. He was wandering around in a state of shock. Furthermore, he couldn't remember how he had gotten there, and several rashes on his skin. Perhaps interesting, while it appears this case is an alien abduction event, there are several cases on record in the 50s, more predominantly of children going missing outside their homes while playing, only to turn up a short while later, many miles away, often confused at what had happened. Discrete contact abductions among the wave. Well, there were contact, huh? Although the vast majority of the incidents around 52 were mainly the sightings only, and often from afar. There were many alleged, if discrete, cases of abduction. For example, in Wentworth, Massachusetts, an 11-year-old girl was playing in a field near her home, and a strange, short humanoid with large eyes and wearing a dark skin-tight suit suddenly approached her. The next thing she knew, she was inside a strange room where an X-ray probe machine examined her. Following that, she was back outside, and the strange creature was gone. Since that day, the witness claims to have had a constant problems with her eyes. Constant problems, huh? Constant problems. Error vision, huh? Okay. Right. Another similar count. How many more of this do I have yet left? Huh? Okay, not that much left. Another UFO quote for the next storms. We'll examine the future cases, connections like that, perhaps like that. Yeah, something like that. However, when the strange, another UFO wave quite before the next UFO storm. Maybe I should just do that and stuff. As we will examine in a future case study article, another equally gripping UFO wave gripped the planet only 2 years later in 54. And like past and future UFO waves, there was a 52 and some very distinct. Yeah, they had some very distinct things about them. Well, distinct things that would basically go together and stuff. Aside from the obvious connections between the shapes of the crafts, mostly disc shape with some cigar or elongated, there is the rather discrete detail of bluish white lights combined with a soft orange glow appears to show up a lot in reports from 52. UFO encounters in this detail important? Is it something we should look for in other subsequent future sightings? And if so, what might it mean? And once again, as we asked the 1950 UFO wave, what might be the purpose for such a dramatic and seemingly purposely visible number of sightings? All right. Sightings. The 1950 wave revolved around reconnaissance and surveillance. Then should we boldly state that the 1952 equivalent geared more toward direct contact, messages, and information about these strange visitors, and even warnings for all of humanity as a whole? If contact was an underlying purpose of the 52 wave, was the mission achieved, or can we judge from the fact another similar wave would explode in 54 that ultimately failed? Or might we find when we examine that particular wave that both the purpose of those behind it is a completely different yet again? Yeah, what do you think about that, folks? Very entertaining as well. We had a good live stream here, but I think I'm going to end it now. Please, folks, please go and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Read comics, they're bad for you, okay? Make sure remember there in the title is misspelled and stuff like that. Make sure you're still subscribed. Hit that like button because it helps me fight the algorithm so more people can see my videos, as well as please go and please leave some comments down below because I love to hear from you guys, as well as please go and please go and share this video on social media. Share it on Twitter, share it on Facebook, okay? And share it on Gab. And hit that bell. Hit the part of the bell that will give you all future notifications for my videos. As well as please share this video on Twitter and Facebook and Gab. All right. Please go to rumble.com and subscribe to my Rumble channel. The name of my Rumble channel is Comic Freak, as well as go over to BitChute and subscribe to my BitChute channel. It is also named Comic Freak. Remember, folks, I'll be back again tomorrow at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock, 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock, or 8 or 10 o'clock for another live stream, so be sure to come back again then. I'm Chris Williams from the Scrum Dogs Kennel. Thank you all for joining me.